Football is the people's game. We live it. We breathe it. But football doesn't belong to us. It belongs to them. We watch in wonder, daring to believe. As we are the dreamers, they are the stars. This series takes an in-depth look at our idols, past and present. And this programme is a taste of things to come. They are the players we wish we were. Ryan Giggs is a history maker and a record breaker. He burst onto the scene as a 17-year-old with Manchester United and has since become the most decorated player in English League football. Over the course of his career, he's accumulated 30 winners' medals from his time at Old Trafford, as well as multiple individual awards. The first man to be crowned Young Player of the Season in England for 2 consecutive seasons, Giggs has amassed more than 800 appearances in a Manchester United shirt, breaking the club record of the legendary Sir Bobby Charlton. The former Welsh international is the only player to score in 11 consecutive Champions League seasons, and as of 2009, every Premier League campaign since its inception, a record stretching an astonishing 18 years. Added to this are countless assists for most, if not all, of his teammates. In 1999, en route to Manchester United's historic treble, an FA Cup semi-final versus Arsenal was decided by one of the most memorable goals of all time.
I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest with you, but when he started to run at them, I'm going, God. You know, it was like watching each hurdle, as a horse comes to each hurdle, go for that one. You know, the time we get in the penalty box, we're all up on our feet. The whole bench was up on their feet because, you know, it got to a position where you say, hey, he could score here. And of course he did.
Born in Tuscany in 1956, Paolo Rossi occupies a special place in Italian hearts.
Paolo Rossi was a great penalty area striker. When the ball came to him in the box, he'd score.
60 goals in 94 games for Vicenza ultimately led Rossi to Turin. With Juventus, he went on to win the League and Cup, Cup Winners' Cup and European Cup.
He had great ability. He was quick. Physically, not the strongest player around, but with the qualities he possessed, he was able to become one of the most important players in the world.
The world at large sat up and took notice when Italy met Brazil in the 1982 World Cup. Rossi took just 5 minutes to open the scoring, and after Sócrates had equalised, the Italian pounced again, and he wasn't finished yet.
Paolo Rossi was one of the best strikers in the world. We lost to a great team, a team that was based around one of the best teams in Europe, in Juventus. And so they were a well-organised unit. And if you come across a great team and make several mistakes, then obviously it will be fatal. And that's what happened.
Rossi's hat-trick against Brazil meant that in the semi-final, the Azzurri pitted against Poland. The striker was on the mark again, with a goal in each half. Italy would meet West Germany in the final.
We believed in ourselves, and we knew we were a top side. Or at least we believed that we could give anyone a good game. We weren't afraid of anyone. And we went out and beat Brazil, Argentina. It wasn't as if we won the World Cup beating any old teams.
Rossi's opening goal paved the way for Italy's 3-1 triumph, and he was named both European and World Player of the Year. The short, squat physique, the magical left foot. It's little wonder Romania's Gheorghe Hagi was nicknamed the Maradona of the Carpathians. In only 97 league games, 76 goals for Steaua Bucharest led Hagi to Real Madrid, Brescia and Barcelona, though following a struggle with injuries, he moved to Galatasaray in 1996. His years in Istanbul were arguably his finest. As he grew older, he grew in stature to become one of the finest playmakers of his generation. The World Cup of 1994 was the pinnacle of Hagi's career. Scoring 3 times along the way, he led his team to the quarter-finals and was one of the players of the tournament. The driving force of Romania's national side for a number of years, he appeared in 3 World Cups during the 90s, and his 125 international appearances were spread over an impressive 17 years. Hagi is worshipped not just in his home country, but also by the football fans of Turkey, a hero to millions across Europe.
It's all about taking people on, getting good crosses in, scoring goals, and that's what he did, Luís.
The leader of Portugal's golden generation, Luís Figo's career accelerated under the stewardship of Johan Cruyff when he moved to Barcelona in 1995. He eventually became captain of the Catalan Giants. With pace and power and a knack of scoring important goals, a combination of tricky wing play and dazzling skills made him a fan's favourite, as he helped bring silverware to the Camp Nou, including Primera Division titles and the 1997 Cup Winners' Cup. During this period, he was named Portuguese Footballer of the Year 6 times in a row. But in the year 2000, controversy raged when a world record transfer fee enticed Figo away from Barcelona to their greatest rivals, Real Madrid. The reception back at the Camp Nou was predictably hostile, but Figo himself ignored the furore and did what he did best.
People harp on about that going back to Barcelona, but he's, I think first and foremost we bought him because he's the most fantastic player. The things that he did, it was the things that, even to this day and age, the players that cost the most money.
In his first season at the Bernabeu, Real won the league title and Figo himself was named FIFA World Footballer of the Year. He went on to become a linchpin of Real Madrid's Galacticos, Zidane, Roberto Carlos et al., winning the Champions League in 2002. Luís Figo remains a symbol of that era and continued to illuminate stadia across Europe. With 127 international caps to his name, in his homeland of Portugal, he's widely acknowledged to be second only to Eusebio as the country's greatest ever player. In 2005, he moved to Italy, winning 4 successive Serie A titles with Internazionale. He announced his retirement in 2009. Scottish striker Denis Law was born in 1940 and is perhaps best known as part of Manchester United's legendary Holy Trinity, alongside Bobby Charlton and George Best. Under Sir Matt Busby, they were part of a team that became known around the world, due in no small part to the chemistry of the trio.
We were 3 different players, and for some reason we gelled for a little spell. Sir Robert, international player, was a beautiful player, struck the ball marvellous. It was like poetry in motion, and the same with Bestie.
From a raw 16-year-old at Huddersfield via Manchester City and Torino, Law's years at Old Trafford were prolific for both club and country. At United, he notched 237 goals in 404 games, 46 in one season alone, to this day a club record. He remains Scotland's joint top scorer alongside Kenny Dalglish, Law's 30 goals coming in only 55 international appearances. Nicknamed the Lawman, it seemed the only Scot to be named European Footballer of the Year could do no wrong. But in 1973, Law signed once again for arch-rivals Manchester City. On the final day of the season, back at Old Trafford, Law famously scored a goal that contributed to United being relegated to the then second division. It was the final match of his club career.
It's very difficult to talk about yourself, but we had a nice time at Manchester United, we had a nice time with Scotland, and really, just very fortunate.
Brazil against Italy, the 1994 World Cup final, the deciding penalty, and it remains the cruelest of ironies. One of the game's greatest players is arguably best remembered for the worst moment of his entire career.
We got behind Roberto, as we did everyone else, as we lost together. We didn't lose because he missed a penalty.
In the 1990 World Cup in Italy, Baggio made his name with this spectacular goal against Czechoslovakia. His performances earned the playmaker a controversial move from Fiorentina, whose fans rioted at the news, to Serie A giants Juventus.
Roberto Baggio was a footballing genius. There's no way you can claim otherwise. He made the difficult look so easy.
In the following years, Baggio's performances earned him both the European and World Player of the Year titles. International success, however, remained elusive. Despite scoring 5 goals at USA 94, the Divine Ponytail would ultimately have to settle for second place.
He was what Platini used to call the number 9.5. Not a midfielder, but not a striker either.
I think Roberto played in an era where the player who played just off the main striker was not valued in the same way as today. He was definitely the best in the world in that position. We're talking about an unbelievable player here.
Yet Baggio never quite fulfilled his rare talent. A serious knee injury and clashes with various managers saw Italy's most gifted player fail to produce consistent performances for some of the country's biggest clubs.
Baggio wasn't the problem. It was the various coaches who were the problem. They weren't capable of managing someone with his talent.
There were still moments of brilliance, however. After some success at Juventus and brief spells at both Milan clubs, Roberto Baggio spent his final years battling injuries at Brescia. The only Italian to score in 3 World Cups, he was overlooked for the 2002 squad and 2 years later announced his retirement. Baggio's final game was back at the San Siro, where 80,000 fans gave him a standing ovation. His predatory instincts in front of goal earned Emilio Butragueño the nickname the Vulture. It's easy to see why. Playing for Spain, he averaged a goal almost every 2 games, and during the World Cup in Mexico in 1986, Butragueño scored 4 goals in a single match as Spain eliminated Denmark. He began his career as a youth at Real Madrid and made his senior debut in 1984 under the legendary Alfredo Di Stefano. A master of arriving in the right place at the right time, he went on to score more than 200 times for Los Blancos. Throughout the late 80s, Real Madrid were one of the best teams in Europe. Butragueño's goals were a major factor in this success, but he was not alone. And it was also during this era that he and Hugo Sánchez forged a formidable partnership. Feeding off the talent around him, as well as his own sense of keen anticipation, to this day, the Vulture remains a hero for both club and country. In 2009, Thierry Henry found himself at the centre of a World Cup storm when his handball against the Republic of Ireland led to French qualification and Irish elimination. But there's no denying the talent in his feet.
Henry, away from Cudicini! That's a measure of the man, finishing at the highest quality.
From the tough suburbs of Paris to the French Riviera, Thierry Henry initially made his name at AS Monaco, then coached by Arsène Wenger.
He has all the qualities you dream to have for a striker. He had pace, power, vision, intelligence, clinical finishing, right-footed, left-footed.
If international recognition was certain, success seemed inevitable. Henry was called into the French World Cup squad in 1998. He went on to become his country's top scorer. Les Bleus went on to an historic triumph over Brazil in the final, and although he himself did not play in that game, Henry was a world champion and not yet 21. 2 years later, he was a member of the squad also crowned European champions.
For 3-4 years or 5 years, he was the Michael Jordan of football. You know, when he decided, he clicked and he could score.
In 1999, Wenger brought Henry to London, and it was at Arsenal where the youngster made his name as a truly world-class footballer. Still in his early 20s, Henry had been transformed by Wenger from a winger to a striker, with devastating effect. Leading from the front, the Frenchman was capable of scoring all types of goals, most of them seemingly spectacular.
Magnificent Arsenal goal! Who else but Monsieur Thierry Henry?
Individual and team awards came thick and fast, and Henry was part of an Arsenal squad which remained unbeaten for an entire season, and in 2005 he became the club's all-time record goalscorer. He moved to Barcelona in 2007, and 2 years later made history again as part of the first Spanish side to win the treble, League, Cup and Champions League. In the pantheon of footballing heroes, few measure up to England's World Cup winning captain Bobby Moore. As famous for his sportsmanship as his footballing prowess, Pelé once referred to Moore as the greatest defender he'd ever faced. His ability to read the game had no equal. His immaculate sense of timing reflected in his immaculate appearance on and off the pitch.
If you selected a team of world-class players over the past 20 or 30 years, then Bobby Moore most certainly would be in the team.
First capped in 1962, Moore was named England captain in only his 12th international. At 22 years of age, he was the youngest man to captain his country.
Something that we tend to forget is that Bobby became the first supporting central defender in an England team.
Whether snuffing out danger or launching counter-attacks, Moore possessed that indefinable quality of making everything look simple, finding time and space in which to play, no matter who the opposition. These were qualities which ultimately led to 108 international caps. At the feet of Moore, tackling became an art form. He had the vision to spot the killer pass as well as the talent to execute it. In the 1966 World Cup final, he twice set up Geoff Hurst to seal an historic England win. A true gentleman of the game, even since his death in 1993, he's remained a role model for many. The sight of Moore raised aloft on the shoulders of his teammates at Wembley remains one of football's most iconic and enduring images. Hailing from Liberia, George Weah's career blossomed in 1988 when he moved from Africa to Europe. Initially at AS Monaco, his stature in the game grew considerably at Paris Saint-Germain, who he joined in 1992. Consistently on the score sheet throughout these years, his final season at the club saw him become the top scorer of the UEFA Champions League. On and off the ball, Weah's speed of thought was arguably his greatest asset, combined with sublime skills and lethal finishing. Inevitably, the glamour clubs of Europe took an interest, and he joined AC Milan in 1995. It was a momentous year for him. He was named African Footballer of the Year for a third time. He also picked up the European award and made history when he became the first, and as of 2009, the only African to be named FIFA World Player of the Year. Widely acclaimed as Africa's greatest ever player, Weah scored 22 times for his country and is still worshipped by his people, whom he now represents as a Liberian politician. He was christened Ricardo, but like Brazil's most famous number 10, he's known to the footballing world simply by his nickname.
As far as I'm concerned, the player who has the most similar style to me is Kaká. He's a guy who runs with the ball, takes it forward and knows how to play.
Kaká began his career at Sao Paulo, where his performances inevitably attracted the attention of Europe's wealthiest clubs. And in 2003, Italian giants AC Milan paid just €8.5 million for the youngster. His impact was immediate, his worth apparent for all to see. In 2005, despite a scintillating display against Liverpool in the Champions League final, Kaká and Milan left Istanbul with only runners-up medals to show for their efforts. The Rossoneri, though, would not be denied and were more determined than ever to regain their European crown. The young Brazilian was a driving force, and 2 years later, once again against Liverpool, Kaká himself supplied the pass for the winning goal in the final in Athens.
Kaká is more complete and more direct. So of the younger players, I think that Kaká is the best.
Consistently regarded as one of the world's finest players, Kaká possesses all the attributes required of a modern-day footballer. Deceptively powerful, he combines strong running with deadly shooting, vision with awareness, and a formidable mental strength he attributes to his Christian faith. A fixture in team selections for both club and country, in 2009 he transferred to Real Madrid, a deal which made Kaká one of the most expensive players in football history. One of the greatest goalkeepers of all time, Dino Zoff, may have had a different story to tell. At the age of 14, he was rejected by Inter and Juventus for his lack of height. 5 years later, he'd grown though, and made his Serie A debut for Udinese. It was the beginning of a record-breaking career. In 1968, Zoff made his debut for Italy, and that same year claimed his first winner's medal as the Azzurri won the European Championships. Zoff reached his pinnacle in 1982. The World Cup final in Spain saw him captain his country at the grand old age of 40. Italy beat West Germany 3-1, and Zoff became the oldest player to lift the World Cup. With an astonishing 150 caps to his name, Germany's Lothar Matthäus was born to lead. A driving force for both club and country, his will to win knew no bounds.
He was like a turbo. If he was ignited at the right moment, you could not stop him.
In the 1990 World Cup, West Germany's captain scored 4 times en route to the final, more driven than ever before to utilise his undoubted talent.
Lothar worked very hard on himself. He made the most of all his opportunities. He was full of running, had a great shot. He was an athlete. A real athlete and a complete player.
Former European and World Player of the Year, he was successful with both Bayern Munich and Internazionale. But Matthäus was equally as defined by his dislike of losing, a constant throughout his career. This was never more noticeable than after the 1999 Champions League final against Manchester United. It was a trophy he would never win. Matthäus is the only outfield player to play in 5 World Cups, and in 1998 he reached the milestone of 25 World Cup appearances, more than any other player.
He was a great player, a world-class footballer. In 1990, he was world champion, and thanks to him, the national team had a lot of success.
Having played to the age of 39, the pinnacle of that success came in 1990, as Matthäus became one of the few men to lift the World Cup. Inspirational and at times infuriating, Eric Cantona is one of the most iconic footballers ever to have played for Manchester United. A mercurial figure, despite a dubious disciplinary record, there was no doubting his abilities on the pitch.
Scoring important goals or making important goals, he was just terrific at it. No, he was a charismatic figure for the players. I think that for all the young players, he was a great example. He was a great role model for the young players in terms of practice and preparing for himself for a game. And he did a fantastic job here.
Somewhat nomadic in France, he found his spiritual home at Old Trafford. The only man to win back-to-back league titles for different English clubs, in 1994 Cantona was instrumental as Manchester United completed the league and FA Cup double, the Frenchman scoring 2 penalties at Wembley against Chelsea.
We all loved him to be part of the team, and in the big games, I mean cup finals, semi-finals, derby games, when you're up against it, Cantona produced a bit of magic when it was needed.
One such piece of magic materialised in the dying moments of the 1996 FA Cup final. Typically, Cantona had chosen the bigger stage on which to perform and became the first foreigner to lift the famous old trophy.
Cantona! Oh, what a goal! Brilliant! No other word for it.
He always did extra training. He'd always be first out to do his warm-up the way he would like to do it. If you want to get to the top of any career, you've got to be dedicated to that sport. Eric was great at that as well.
After 4 league titles in 5 years, Cantona left Manchester United in 1997. To this day, his name is still sung by the Old Trafford faithful. For nearly 2 decades, the face of Mexican football belonged to Hugo Sánchez. Known for his athleticism and acrobatics, Sánchez made his global mark, like many others before him, when he joined Real Madrid. Already the holder of the Pichichi Trophy, awarded to La Liga's top scorer, his first 5 years at the Bernabeu brought 5 successive Primera Liga titles and 4 more Pichichi trophies. His trademark somersault celebration became a familiar sight. On the international stage, Sánchez was less successful, though 29 goals in 60 appearances was no mean feat. Mexico were absent from the World Cup finals in '82 and 1990, though hopes were high in 1986 as the country hosted the tournament. Sánchez did score in the group stages, but it would be his only goal that summer, and Mexico were knocked out at the quarter-final stage. Prolific throughout his career, Sánchez had the knack of making the spectacular look easy and will surely be remembered for the quality of his goals as much as the quantity. When Johan Cruyff took up the management reins at Barcelona, he set about building what became known as the Dream Team. Essential to his plan was Hristo Stoichkov. The Bulgarian was known for his explosive acceleration, matched occasionally by his explosive temper. His talent as a goalscorer was undeniable, but in order to adapt to his new surroundings, Stoichkov had to make 1 or 2 alterations to his game.
He came to Barcelona. He was the king of Bulgaria, and he came there, and in the beginning he was trying to do some of the things he did there. And we said to him, "Oh, you have to be a part of a group. If you want to that, will have everything here."
Once those changes had been made, Stoichkov and Barcelona never looked back. The Catalans won 4 consecutive league titles, as well as the 1992 European Cup, and in Romário, Cruyff had found the perfect partner for Stoichkov. The Bulgarian had become a firm believer in the Barcelona ideology.
He also realized after a couple of months, well, you have to be part of a group because it's the group who are doing the things. Because one time I'm playing good, next time it's you, the next time it's him.
His finest hour on the international stage came in the United States at the World Cup of 1994. Stoichkov led Bulgaria to the semi-finals, scoring 6 goals along the way, making him the tournament's joint top scorer. That same year, he was named European Footballer of the Year. Like Rivellino and Maradona before him, Stoichkov did everything with his left foot, but more often than not to devastating effect. A free-kick specialist as well as a predatory striker, he played 83 times for his country, scoring 37 goals along the way, and in 2004 he was appointed coach to the national team.
Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp. Oh, what a goal!
Named after the Scottish legend Denis Law, Dutch striker Dennis Bergkamp began his career at the famous youth system of hometown club Ajax. It was an education which served him well, and one which remained with Bergkamp his entire career. But it was at London club Arsenal where his true genius really came to light.
You asked me about great players, but Bergkamp, he was the beauty of the game. He scored such wonderful, beautiful goals. He really was a great player.
Sublime skills led to sublime goals, but as often as Bergkamp found the score sheet himself, it was frequently his teammates who found they were the beneficiaries of a Dutch masterclass.
The man has definitely been touched. He's just a football genius. He's a master.
Known for his deft passing, tactical awareness and cool finishing, Bergkamp was a key figure in Arsenal's re-emergence as a major force in English football and prompted Thierry Henry to praise him as the best strike partner he ever played with.
A lot of people get nervous, you know, with opponents around them, and he's still so cool.
Internationally, Bergkamp never enjoyed the success his talent deserved. Despite playing in several major tournaments with the Netherlands, silverware remained elusive. Now second to Patrick Kluivert, for a while he was Holland's top scorer with 37 goals in 79 appearances, many of them blessed with true brilliance.
A great player with great technique and also good speed, and a fantastic player to play with.
I played early on in his career for the first team, and he was always going to be a superstar.
Second only to Kenny Dalglish in the Liverpool Hall of Fame lies the very heartbeat of the club. Steven Gerrard is Liverpool's captain and driving force, amazing and inspiring in equal measure. First impressions pointed towards his destiny.
You didn't have to be a manager to nurture him, to bring him into the team. It was, the fella outside could have brought him into the team because you knew he was that good that there was nothing going to stop him.
Born and bred in Liverpool, Gerrard spent a decade at the club before making his senior debut in 1998. Within 3 years, he was a key figure in Liverpool's cup treble of 2001. He scored his first international goal in England's memorable 5-1 win over Germany in Munich and has gone on to win more than 70 England caps. For Liverpool, Gerrard was further galvanised by the captain's armband.
When you're the captain of Liverpool Football Club, it's not just the captain when you put the armband on the pitch, it's off the pitch, it's around the training ground, it's around the stadium, it's when you're at home, it's when you're doing everything every day in your life. You've got a responsibility, you've got to make sure you give it your best shot.
Leading by example, miracles have become the norm. When hope begins to fade, Gerrard's belief grows even stronger. In the Champions League final of 2005, Gerrard inspired his team to one of the greatest comebacks of all time. Trailing 3-0 to AC Milan, Liverpool's local hero began the fight back himself. This was Gerrard's stage, and he would not be denied. The skipper again came to the rescue in the following year's FA Cup final, twice.
In comes Gerrard! And they are back on level terms. Gerrard! Oh! Oh, goodness me! What a strike from Steven Gerrard!
Irreplaceable and at all times irresistible, Gerrard's fierce determination and will to win know no bounds. To Liverpool supporters, he's one of their own, a true local hero. Widely acknowledged as one of the greatest defenders ever to play the game, Franco Baresi is unquestionably a giant in the history of Italian football. A one-club man his entire career, he was part of a Milan back four considered one of the finest ever. He was a linchpin of a squad which won 3 European Cups and 6 Serie A titles.
I've been here since I was 14, so Milan means everything to me. It's like my second family here, an adoptive family.
In a country where defence was a priority, Baresi was second to none and proved himself a master of reading the game. Time and again, the world's best strikers were thwarted, as Baresi made the difficult look simple, combining tough tackling with exquisite timing.
I'd get to the ball first because I read the game so well. I was always good tactically.
Baresi won 81 international caps and captained Italy to the 1994 World Cup final. The Azzurri lost on penalties to Brazil, with Baresi himself missing the first kick. Undoubtedly a legend of the game, and most certainly Milan, his number 6 shirt has been retired by the club as a mark of respect. An impossible shirt to fill.
Maybe someone's don't like me, but because maybe I'm too good.
Cristiano Ronaldo is a bona fide superstar, blessed with searing pace and power. He's known for his quick feet and dribbling skills, tricks and flicks, and goal-scoring prowess. He won his first major trophy for Manchester United, aged just 19, his goal helping the club to win the FA Cup final. Never short of confidence, Ronaldo has grown in stature every season. His finishing ability makes him both a threat inside and outside the area, from open play or free kicks. Inspired by the famous number 7 shirt of Best and Cantona, in 2007-08, an incredible 42 goals in all competitions led ultimately to the Ballon d'Or, Manchester United's first recipient since George Best.
I think he's brilliant. I think he will only get better. I don't think they've got anyone who can replace Ronaldo at the moment. He's unstoppable at times, isn't he?
In 2009, he signed for Real Madrid for a world record £80 million. Certain players have a certain presence. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge was undoubtedly one of those players, but there was far more to the German than mere strength. Initially known for his dribbling skills, once Rummenigge proved his striking ability, he continued to do so for the remainder of his career. The goals flowed for both club and country, but much to his chagrin, his favourite strike was the one that got away.
The best goal I ever scored was disallowed. It was a goal at the San Siro for Inter Milan in the return leg against Glasgow Rangers. It was an incredible goal. I realised I couldn't reach it with my head, so I turned myself in mid-air. I caught the ball fully, and it went into the top corner. The German referee Volker Roth disallowed the goal.
Und damals deutscher Schiedsrichter Volker Roth hat das Tor aberkannt.
The early to mid-80s saw the German at his peak. It was during this period that the 2 times European Footballer of the Year was widely recognised to be vying with Diego Maradona for the unofficial crown of the world's best player. Rummenigge scored 45 times in 95 international appearances, and despite his goal in a thrilling World Cup semi-final against France, West Germany went on to lose to Italy in the 1982 final. 4 years later, again in the final, Rummenigge's goal ignited a West German fight back against Argentina, though it was not enough, as Maradona inspired his country to a 3-2 win. Rummenigge, however, will always be remembered as a legend of German football. With the hand of God stitched into his boots, it's little wonder Lionel Messi had been dubbed the new Maradona. But ever since Barcelona signed him as a boy, Messi has lived with the label and in some style. At a club where the virtues of the beautiful game are practiced and preached, the player known as the Flea is already a Camp Nou legend in the making. Messi broke into Barcelona's first team aged just 17, and like his hero Maradona, quickly became a fan's favourite. Skill, control and vision, and all done at blistering pace. With the ball at his feet, the youngster bears more than a passing resemblance to his idol and is complemented further by the talent surrounding him. An essential part of the historic treble-winning team of 2009, Messi's goal in the Champions League final against Manchester United was his 38th of a record-breaking season. He was European and FIFA World Player of the Year.
I had a great year, but that's got a lot to do with what Barcelona did, and are still doing, through the way they play and the titles they've won. I don't know if it's been the happiest year of my career, but it's certainly been a memorable one.
A fixture in the Argentina team since making his debut in 2005, Messi is also an Olympic champion, claiming a gold medal in Beijing in 2008.
I have the best player in the world in Messi. When he's on the ball, our opponents are under extra pressure, and this lifts our entire team.
Even Maradona himself has referred to Messi as his successor. Argentina has a new number 10. Think of Brazilian football in its purest form and it's hard not to think of Sócrates, a player who epitomised the beautiful game. Famous for smoking 2 packets of cigarettes a day, he was never considered a natural athlete. Yet the willowy playmaker made up for it with a rare intelligence and distinctive footballing philosophy.
Someone who thinks doesn't run, someone who runs doesn't think.
A doctor of both medicine and philosophy, Sócrates is perhaps best remembered as captain of the finest Brazilian team never to win a World Cup. His graceful running was at the heart of a side that scored at will and dazzled all before them with a thrilling brand of fluid attacking football in 1982. Yet the favourites crashed out to the eventual champions Italy, a result that shocked the world of football. Sócrates came to prominence at Sao Paulo giants Corinthians in the late 70s and early 80s. He inspired the club to 3 regional titles. Pelé once stated that Sócrates played football better backwards than most players going forwards. On the pitch, he was as imaginative as he was intelligent. Off it, the chain-smoking, beer-drinking intellectual doctor was something of a revolutionary.
A footballer has a lot of power. It's the only job where the employee has more power than the boss. He has the masses in his hands.
Sócrates used his power to found Corinthian democracy. Everything at the club was now decided by vote, from the daily training schedule to the club's transfer policy.
The vote was totally democratic. So the kitman or masseur were just as much a part of the structure of the club, and their vote had the same weight as the club directors. Or the third choice keeper had the same say as me, captain of Brazil.
In 1984, the movement drew a stunning 1.5 million people to a rally in the heart of Sao Paulo, demanding a democratic presidential election. Sócrates vowed to leave the country if the motion wasn't approved, but the rally failed. Corinthian democracy disbanded, and he kept his promise.
I went to Italy mainly due to a political decision of mine, as there were things going on back home. That's why I left. Otherwise, I'd never have gone. I simply had no interest. I spent 1 miserable year there and came running back. My life is definitely here in Brazil.
David Beckham is one of the most recognised men on the planet, but it was his football ability which first caught the eye.
Control, passing, people don't mention that, they just talk about his crossing, his free kicks. His control, his awareness where he was on the field, his work rate, everything was there for him to be a top player.
Just one of a team of talented youngsters, many of whom went on to international stardom, Beckham truly announced himself in 1996, playing for Manchester United against Wimbledon.
He had a certain amount of natural talent, but he was one of these who'd go on the training ground and he'd just practice and practice.
Such dedication brought handsome rewards. With his club continuing to dominate English football, Beckham's reputation grew. International recognition was not long in coming. He made his mark on the World Cup in France in 1998. The elation, however, was short-lived. Pilloried in his own country for an act of petulance against Argentina, 3 years later, the villain turned hero. Now captain of England, in the final World Cup qualifier against Greece, he led his team by example with a truly singular performance. Redemption was complete when England again met Argentina at the finals in Japan. In the preceding 4 years, Beckham's stock had risen steadily. Medals were gathered season after season, culminating in Manchester United's incredible Champions League triumph in 1999. Trailing 1-0 in injury time, Beckham's set-piece delivery led to his finest hour. For the next 4 years, he cemented his reputation as a leading world player, not least as a dead ball specialist for both club and country. In 2003, he joined Real Madrid, another Galactico to grace the Bernabeu. A spell in the US followed at the LA Galaxy before Beckham secured a loan deal to AC Milan. The move helped prolong his international career, so much so that in 2009 he became England's most capped outfield player and remains the only Englishman to score in 3 World Cups.
I played with Platini, I played with Ian Rush, I played with Koeman, I played with Stoichkov, I played with Elkjær, with my brother. So many great players in Ajax also, but if you talk quality, there's nobody like Romário. He was simply fantastic.
The little South American was indeed a special talent. After 4 years at Rio's Vasco da Gama, Romário de Sousa Faria left Brazil for Europe, where he settled in the Netherlands. For PSV Eindhoven, he scored an astonishing 98 times in 109 games. Yet for some people, that wasn't enough.
Maybe some thought, well, he's fantastic, but yeah, scoring goal in Holland is not the same as in Spain. And he came and said, well, I will score 30 goals. And he scored 30 goals.
Romário was now at the peak of his powers. Johan Cruyff's dream team regularly dismantled opposition of the calibre of Real Madrid and Manchester United. And in 1994, FIFA named him their World Player of the Year. With the likes of Michael Laudrup also on top of his game, Cruyff had concocted a recipe for success Romário, it seemed, could hardly miss.
We've been playing together for maybe 2 games, and then it was like we have been playing together for 2 years because the understanding was so natural.
Short and stocky, yet deceptively quick, Romário continued to score goals back in his native Brazil. And like many of his South American compatriots, he also knew how to celebrate.
Never saw him. He was dancing. No, he liked to dance and go a little out. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but still, when you play the game and you give you have that quality and you show it in every game, well, I think it's accepted.
Despite all his domestic success, his finest hour came unsurprisingly with the national team. After a late recall to the Brazil squad during qualifying, Romário partnered Bebeto at the World Cup finals in the United States. The tournament became a showcase for his talent, speed, strength, skill, determination, finishing. Romário demonstrated the full set. He went on to score 5 times, including goals in the quarter-final against Holland and the semi-final against Sweden. The World Cup went to Brazil for a record 4th time. The little man from Rio was named player of the tournament and all told went on to score an incredible 55 goals in 70 matches for his country. Only Pelé and Ronaldo can top that. From far and wide, from past to present, football's greatest players exist on a higher plane. But they, like us, remain football fans, and the game's biggest names have their own favourites.
If you gave him an inch, it was a disaster for you.
Not only a brilliant player, but a great goal scorer too.
Amazing qualities. Right footed, left footed, he's ahead. He was very intelligent.
We were playing with him, and it was an honor for us, and we were really excited.
He was inspired in that World Cup. I think a saint was watching over him.
He was the most complete player in history.
He turned out to be a phenomenon, first as a footballer, then as a human being. Extraordinary.
I never really saw Pelé play that much. Perhaps he was better than me. But my mother says I was the best.
In the weeks to come, 25 more players are looked at in depth. Triumph and heartbreak, rises and falls.